Gawain, Jiaoan. A mass of warm chaos surrounded Gawain, and the ups and downs made his consciousness gradually blurred, and the focus of his sight escaped into a halo. He couldn't see the contour lines clearly, but only vaguely caught a touch of blue, clear blue, involuntarily want to reach out and touch. Get closer, get closer. Gawain. A call came from the ear, and it exploded like a thunderbolt. The billowing air burst out with ferocious force, breaking the balance of the body, and the pull of gravity made the heart firmly clamped by the sense of weightlessness in an instant, and the limbs swayed reflexively. Trying to regain balance, grasp at straws. I plunged into the blue, and then, my feet stood firmly on the ground, and there was a sense of solidity from the solace of my feet, which contrasted with the panic of the beating heart hitting my chest fiercely, and there was a roar above the eardrums. The focus of sight was recondensed, the blue gradually turned into gold, and the gorgeous and dazzling gold crashed into the depths of the pupils. In front of him was a square baby face, with black hair and black eyes, and deep facial features with thick eyebrows and big eyes revealing a trace of handsomeness. There is a trace of joy, full of youthful flying. Is this MacDonald? Gawain was a little confused. Mackenzie MacDonald, was his college alumnus and tennis team teammate when he was studying at UCLA. He had spent countless sweaty training and competition days side by side, but after graduation, they take a very different path. He gave up tennis because of a knee injury, returned to China, and became an ordinary office worker. MacDonald became a professional tennis player and performed well. The last time I saw news about MacDonald was on TV. At the Australian Open at the beginning of this year, MacDonald beat 3 players in a row to reach the round of 16, tying his best record in a personal Grand Slam, and performed very well. Gawain was sincerely happy for his friends who had fought side by side, and stood far away to send his blessings. However, due to the difference in life trajectories, the two have not been in touch for a long time, let alone talked face to face. So, what is going on at this time? With question marks all over his head, Gawain finally noticed the environment they were in, not the company or the apartment, but the tennis court. The dark blue collides with the light blue hard tennis court, and the tennis blocks are piled up in a mess like fishing nets. The step seats extend all the way up along the 4 sides to form a deep well space. The tall trees planted neatly along the field are in the breeze. Rustle. So strange, yet so familiar. The morning sun that had just risen penetrated the trees and sprinkled mottled on the field. Gawain couldn't help stretching out his right hand, feeling the warmth of the golden sunlight on his palm, and then he could see the supermarket shopping trolley full of tennis in his hand. Those tennis because overuse and start to blow hair, just like angry birds, recording their youthful memories. Hoo-hoo! A gust of wind blew, the treetops swayed, light and shadow flowed, and then Gawain noticed the familiar sign on the side of the court, UCLA Brown Bears. Wait, this is his college alma mater? But, how did he get from Shanghai to Los Angeles? Why did he appear on the school tennis court? Could it be that all this is just a dream? But if it is a dream, all this is too real, so real, perfect. Gawain, what's the matter? Haven't woken up yet? MacDonald bumped Gawain's shoulder, winked and joked. Or, do you want to be lazy and leave the preparations to me? Looking at MacDonald's wheat-colored skin, it seems as if he can feel the traces of the sun on it, and the collagen in his youth is still full of vitality. Gawain's thoughts pulled back a little, he spread his hands and made a helpless gesture, and replied. Oops, the trick has been punctured. MacDonald was just joking. Seeing Gawain just admitted like this, he felt a little embarrassed, touched his nose. Okay, I was not feeling well the day before yesterday, and you are the only one who needs to clean up after training. It was done by someone, and today's preparations will be done by me. Sure enough, MacDonald was an honest man. Just as he remembered, Gawain had already taken the initiative to think carefully before he said anything. Gawain deliberately raised his eyebrows at his friend, and made a V gesture of victory to celebrate his success in escaping the preparation work. MacDonald looked depressed and protested with his eyes. He was about to catch Gawain with one step forward, but he didn't expect that Gawain's reaction speed would be one step faster, and he dodged by retreating one step earlier. "You bastard!" MacDonald gritted his teeth and shouted, and then he and Gawain chased each other on the tennis court to fight, chasing around the court in circles, like a child who hadn't grown up. Pure and bright laughter filled his chest. The sky is turbulent, and it seems that even the sun is dancing with their footsteps. In the past, they were all so carefree, believing in the sun, the future, and hope. Just the simplest running and chasing can bring happiness, but gradually, as they grow up, the happiness disappears. Happiness becomes more and more difficult, and finally trapped in an endless grey chaos. Like the Walking Dead. Only when watching a tennis match can I feel a faint passion deep in my soul, but when I look down at the ugly surgical scar on my knee, I feel so sore every night when it rains that I can't sleep all night. I can only turn off the TV in frustration. Knee? It took many beats before Gawain realized that his knees were not swollen and painful as usual. Not only were they not, but they were still moving freely and as light as a swallow, as if, had never been injured. An emergency break, from the toes to the calf, through the knee, and extending to the thigh. Gawain can clearly feel the tension and control of the muscles. The light and elastic tension perfectly controls the body. Even the emergency brake at high speed, the knee can also perfectly withstand the impact. The smile remained at the corner of his mouth. Gawain looked down at his knees in disbelief. A smooth, flat, healthy knee. The hideous scars left by the multiple operations in his memory all disappeared, and he could hardly remember what his knee without scars looked like before the operation. But now? No scars, no pain, no swelling, nothing, just as good as ever. Boom! Gawain's emergency brake was too sudden. MacDonald did not expect it at all. Like a high-speed train, a collision accident occurred when he was out of control. He was about to fall into a heap. Several footstep adjustments not only controlled his center of gravity balance, but also successfully prevented MacDonald from falling. Sorry. MacDonald's first reaction was to apologize, which he blurted out, even though he had no idea what was going on. Gawain looked down at his knees, carefully feeling the flexibility of healthy knees. He could even clearly feel every detail of the movement of muscles and bones. Like a brand new machine with sufficient lubricating oil, everything is original configuration, an excellent performance. Naturally, joy and happiness surged in my chest. He raised his head and looked at MacDonald's tense appearance. Before he could even adjust his breathing, he apologized ignorantly, and a smile bloomed at the corner of Gawain's mouth. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha ha. Chi Lang Lang smiled, the more you laugh, the happier you are. Like a fool. MacDonald was slightly stunned, looked at the stupid Gawain inexplicably, and looked around to make sure that no outsiders saw them being stupid, between keeping a distance to avoid being infected by stupidity and joining friends to be stupid together, hesitated for a moment, and finally chose the latter. Flutter. After all, MacDonald couldn't hold it back. He watched Gawain shake his head again and again, and then laughed too. Laughing and laughing, the laughter burst into full bloom. The full-hearted laughter echoed on the tennis court, stirring up a piece of sunshine. Gawain smiled brighter and brighter. He is back. Second chance? In the darkest, most exhausting and most helpless years of life, reading www.yuyugonshu.com. He has thought more than once, if everything can be done all over again, that would be great. Unexpectedly, things actually happened now, and he really won a second chance to restart after reloading the file. That kind of happiness is indescribable. But what time is it now? He will never forget that the first injury to his knee was on February 15, 2014, now that his knee is still intact, it should be before that time. Looking at MacDonald, whose face is still green and immature, and looking at the tennis court waiting to be set up at dawn, the memories buried deep in the dust slowly came to life at this point. It should be December 2013. The specific date needs to be further confirmed. If there is no accident, this should be the period when the tennis school team is training in winter, preparing for the spring season that will kick off in 2 months. Gao Wen and McDonald, both freshmen and rookies, have just joined the team for less than half a year, and they are the first to arrive at the stadium every day to make arrangements, and the last to leave the stadium to pack their equipment. In November of this year, he had just turned 18 years old, and a world with a vast sea and sky spread out before his eyes, and even the sound of wheezing and wheezing was full of vitality. There was a slight shock in my mind, and in the next second, a group of light blue fonts appeared on the retina. The system has been activated. What? Just when Gao Wen thought he was dazzled, another set of light blue fonts appeared. Growth potential plus 0.01%. What kind of rebirth benefit is this? Crash. Gao Wen's head, which had been deeply buried in the sink, suddenly lifted up, fresh oxygen poured into his lungs, a burst of coolness, the chaos and excitement in his head cooled down slightly, and he looked at the picture in the water-stained mirror that still had some traces of it. The youthful boy's face was somewhat familiar, but even more unfamiliar. The wet short black hair drooped down like water plants, stretched 5 fingers and stretched out his hand to comb back. The facial features were fully revealed, the sharp brow peaks and full brow bones vaguely showed a stubborn rebelliousness, so vigorous yet so energetic. The sharp-edged silhouette carries the air of an 18-year-old. Gao Wen couldn't remember it long ago. At the age of 18, he was once a high-profile genius boy. He also believed that he could win the Grand Slam and become the number 1 in the world. The blow made the sharp edges between the eyebrows rounder little by little, and finally disappeared completely. However, the projection in the mirror in front of me is a little different. His eyes are no longer green or immature, his restrained sharpness reveals a sense of stability. He can vaguely see the appearance of working overtime in the company in a tired state last night, and the reality gradually becomes real, which makes Gao Wen truly it's settled. He returned from 2021 to 2013 and returned to his freshman year. At this moment, it is still the golden age when the Big Four ruled the tennis world. The new generation of the POST90s has been completely suppressed, and the teenagers of the POST95s have not yet grown up. All games are classics, which is undoubtedly happiness for the fans. In fact, looking back from 2021, it is only a short period of 7 years ago, but Gao Wen always feels that it seems to have happened in the last century. Especially after experiencing the magic of 2020 and 2021, time seems to have been disrupted, and Gao Wen needs a little time to calm his nerves. After informing McDonald, Gawain went to the bathroom, washed his face, and finally calmed down. His down-to-earth sense of reality gradually became clear, and his chaotic thoughts gradually sorted out a clue: the system. Yes, the system. Call. Letting out a long breath, Gao Wen stared at himself in the mirror. His sanity had returned, and then he resummoned the system that had just appeared. He only needed to concentrate and summon it silently in his heart. A virtual light blue interface will pop up on Retina, Tennis Training Master. The first page is divided into left and right sections, and the left side is personal basic information. Name: Gao Wen. Nationality: Chinese. Age: 18. Birthday: November 11, 1995. Dominant hand: right. Height: 193 cm. Weight: 83 kg. The right side is subdivided into 4 subsections, 3 of which are personal attributes. Physical attributes: 52 technical attributes, 63 spirit attribute, 70 each attribute occupies a section, and you can also see attribute sub-items in the section. For example, physical attributes include strength, explosiveness, speed, reaction, endurance, and flexibility. Technical attributes include serve, return, forehand, backhand, and net. Prejudgment: mental attributes include tactics, concentration, toughness, and key shots. The interesting part is here, the specific values of the attribute subitems cannot be seen, only a series of histograms can be seen, which can vaguely distinguish the high and low attributes, but if the gap is too small, it is difficult to distinguish clearly. Among the physical attributes, the highest value is endurance, followed by flexibility, the lowest value is strength, and the penultimate value is explosion. Among the technical attributes, the highest value is anticipation, followed by backhand, and the lowest value is half-baked serve and forehand. The four sub-items in the mental attribute are almost the same, relatively average, and the highest value is tactics, which is slightly ahead. The entire panel can only see the scores of the three comprehensive attributes, and cannot see the values of specific sub-items, but this can already predict the style of a player. Gao Wen was born in a small city on the coast of the Southeast China Sea. When he was a child, he was very active and loved to run. He was like a wild horse and couldn't pull it no matter what. The family considered letting him learn a sport to develop his strength. Because my mother especially liked the generation of tennis superstar Andre Agassi, she chose tennis, which was relatively unpopular back then. Unexpectedly, he was found to have a talent for tennis after hitting the wrong shot. As shown by the attribute data, Gao Wen's physical attributes are the weak link. His body is thin and lacks strength, and his forehand and serve are relatively weak. At the same time, it also directly leads to Gao Wen's backhand can only be held with both hands because of the one-handed backhand. The strength of the body is not enough, and the left hand is needed for support. Relatively speaking, Gao Wen's backhand and movement are very good, and he has shown impressive abilities at a young age. However, tennis is not a sport that requires direct contact with the body, such as football, basketball, rugby, and boxing. It is an indirect confrontation sport that requires the combination of skill and strength, and flexible mobility. The height-to-weight ratio is relatively special. Of UU reading www.uugonshu.com. Take Novak Djokovic, as an example, 188 centimeters, 80 kilograms, not strong. In terms of Gao Wen, overall he is still on the thin side, but it is enough for tennis. It is just that he lacks in strength and explosiveness, which affects both technique and tactics. Gao Wen's truly eye-catching tennis talent is his sense of the ball and touch. The so-called sense of the ball is the understanding of tennis. Just like football and basketball, when the tennis ball is flying in the air, you can always master its rotation and changes, which is very obvious when you do no racket training. Roger Federer's touch on the ball is unparalleled in the world. The so-called feel is the feeling of touching the ball through the racket. It is mainly the control of the small muscles of the arm, because tennis is a sport about rotation and strength. How to understand, analyze, wrap, apply force, etc. at the moment when the tennis ball hits the racket at high speed. The fourth-ranked female tennis player in the world, Agnieszka Radwanska, has the touch of a one-sided genius. Of course, the feel of the ball and the touch are often inseparable, and it is a talent that is difficult to cultivate and improve through acquired training. It cannot be shown by numbers in terms of physical fitness and technical quality, but it is definitely the best in ball sports. One of the most important and most precious talents. In addition, Gao Wen has shown excellent golf quotient potential. That is to play with the mind. The interpretation of the battle situation and the tactical layout have been revealed at the beginner stage. Naturally, the advantages and disadvantages of physical fitness have been balanced, and soon found his own position on the tennis court. In 2001, Gao Wen was 6 years old and started playing tennis. That year, Leighton Hewitt defeated Peter Sampras, at the US Open to win the Grand Slam title for the first time, and in October of the same year, at the age of 10 years and 8 months, he became the youngest world number 1 ever. At that time, the Enlightenment coach believed that even if the forehand was not strong enough, Gao Wen could grow up with Hewitt as a model. In 2008, Jiaoan Primary School graduated. That year, the year-end number 1 in men's professional tennis was Rafael Nadal, whose forehand strength and defensive counterattack were iconic representatives. At this time, both Gao Wen's mother and coach realized that Gao Wen still had a long way to go before realizing his talent and turning it into a career. On the one hand, Gao Wen needs more professional training, and there is a relative shortage of coaching resources in small and medium-sized cities. On the other hand, the high cost of professional tennis training is also difficult for Gao Wen's family to afford. After careful consideration, Gao Wen's mother chose the route of American high schools and colleges, that is, the Youth Tennis League and the NCAA. NCAA, the American College League, including basketball, rugby, tennis, etc., has a complete league system, which serves as a platform to continuously send countless talents to the professional league. At the same time, the importance that universities attach to the league also makes them willing to provide special scholarships to help students train. The difference between the NCAA and professional tennis schools is that the NCAA believes that not all athletes can turn to the professional field, and they need to ensure the future of these student athletes, first students, then athletes, to distinguish from professional players. In this way, even if you can't transfer to a professional league after graduation, you can still get a diploma. Therefore, the NCAA has minimum credit requirements for all players, otherwise they will be banned directly. For Gao Wen's mother, the NCAA is undoubtedly the best choice. The shortcoming of Gao Wen's physical condition may bring more restrictions in the future, and he may not be able to change careers. Then, when the family cannot provide effective financial support, he can enter the NCAA to receive professional training while ensuring his studies. It is the best choice to prepare both hands for future development. Gao Wen also worked hard enough and was determined enough to hold tennis scholarships and academic scholarships along the way, riding the wind and waves from high school to university. Regrettably, Gao Wen's mother's worries finally happened, and injuries hindered his progress. So, after graduating from university, he entered a public relations company and became an office worker. Once, Gao Wen thought more than once, if he hadn't suffered any injuries, if he could continue to receive training, what would be the result? Now, the second chance really appeared, so what should I do? The line of sight fell on the property panel again. Even if you do it all over again, the problem still exists. The key point is how to face the problem and how to solve the problem. When February 15th comes again, will the same mistakes be repeated? Maybe, he can find the answer in this system. Thinking of this, his eyes fell on the fourth plate in the lower right corner. Tier title, Advanced Growth Potential, 36.01%. What do these mean? His brows were slightly frowned, and the focus of his eyes fell on the advanced person, and a paragraph of explanatory text appeared naturally. Advanced, the advanced stage of learning tennis, with a competitive level of strong confrontation, representing the top level among non-professional players and the advanced level of young people who are about to turn professional. I see. Below the explanatory text, you can also see 2 pages, and you can see more explanations by scrolling down. Beginners, the beginning stages of learning tennis, represent a rapidly advancing level of ability. Intermediate, the intermediate stage of learning tennis, the amateur competitive level, representing the higher level of teenagers and the intermediate level of adults. In other words, from beginners to intermediates to advanced players, these are all in the range of non-professional players, and they are almost far from the professional level. Advanced players should be the top level of non-professional players. Gao Wen has already won the titles of beginner and intermediate, and is now in the 3rd stage. NCAA is a competitive league, but objectively speaking, they are indeed not professional. If you go to professional competitions, they are often low-level hopeful matches and challenge matches. The competitors are all players ranked outside the world's 500th. It is difficult to show more competitiveness in professional competitions at the ATP and WTA levels. At least, that's the general average. Reading www.yuyugonshu.com, but I don't know how far it is from an advanced person to a professional level. So, what about growth potential? Growth potential values can be obtained through basic training, daily training, and competitions. The specific value will vary according to the content, intensity, difficulty, and method of training or competitions. The whole explanation is relatively written and relatively general and vague, without further detailed knowledge, but it is not difficult to understand. Just like a game, accept tasks, kill monsters, and gain experience, then, the experience value is determined according to the difficulty of the task and the level of the monster. In this way, the growth potential plus 0.01% that just appeared should be because of his pursuit with McDonald? No, more precisely, it should be running. Thinking of this, Gao Wen directly started the high leg raising training in the bathroom. If it was normal, Gao Wen would never be so reckless and impulsive, and the bathroom is obviously not suitable for training, but after experiencing a series of incredible events, it seems that he has regained a little youthful spirit, his joy and excitement are uncontrollable, and he can't wait to try it out. There is an impulse. So, he did it. Tread, tread. Tread, tread. Growth potential plus 0.01%. Growth potential plus 0.01%. Strings of blue fonts were refreshed upwards along the retina. The growth visible to the naked eye made the adrenaline burst suddenly, and the mood also jumped with joy. Does this mean that as long as you train persistently, you can improve? Also, what happens when the growth potential reaches 100%? What would happen if growth potential reached 100%? Gawain was a little curious. The entire winter training lasted 6 weeks, and then they will usher in the NCAA spring season, plus the Christmas break and adjustment time before the start of the season, which means that he still has 2 full months to figure out how the system works. Improve your strength, and then change the trajectory of fate. It's been 2 months, the time is still a bit tight. Gao Wen has already started to look eager to try, and he can't wait to plunge into the training immediately. But is that all there is to the system? He refocused his attention, looked at the entire clean interface carefully, and then returned to the left page, and landed on a booklet icon under the basic personal information. The thick booklet looked thick and profound. Just now he thought it was the details of the attributes need to be opened after the upgrade, but it seems not. Focusing the eyes, falling on the booklet, a soft white light passed by, and the clear colors rippled like waves, entering a new page. There is a line of large characters hanging directly above, Training Manual. Double the training effect, can be upgraded. Directly below is a neat row of icons, and different icons represent different meanings. Strength training, explosive training, flexibility training, reaction training, speed training, foot training, serving training, catching the ball, forehand training, backhand training, bottom line training, online training, small ball training, volley training, high pressure training, cutting training, mobile training, tactical training. They are densely arranged horizontally and vertically, like a treasure house. Gao Wen was dumbfounded. It turned out that this is the real essence of tennis training master. Every detail of a project. What's more, the training effect is doubled, upgradable. The effect of host basic training, daily training, and competitions can be doubled. In other words, training for an hour can achieve twice the effect of reality. If Gao Wen's understanding is correct, this is the biggest cheat. Even if you have a system, you still need to improve through your own training. The harder you work, the more you will gain. How high the effect can be achieved depends entirely on one's own efforts and persistence. Gurgling. Gurgling. His blood started to boil, and Gao Wen couldn't stand it any longer, so he was ready to start training immediately, to formally feel what it was like to double the training effect. Turning around, he opened the door of the bathroom, and then he saw MacDonald hovering at the door, with his eyebrows slightly moving towards the middle to see his worry, which warmed Gao Wen's heart slightly. MacDonald, Don't look at his name. In fact, he is a Chinese-English half-Chinese descendant. His grandparents are the first generation of immigrants from Guangdong. As a third-generation immigrant, he is not proficient in Chinese, and only learned it in high school. A little bit, but the level is shallow. Compared with Gao Wen, McDonald's resume is much better. Last year, he reached the semi-finals in the junior group of the Australian Open, and also won a North American Hope Tournament championship. It can be said that he has already shown his talent and strength. However, McDonald's physical condition is not the best, 178 centimeters, 73 kilograms, mainly because the height limits the threatening effect of the serve, and he really needs to face more challenges in order to open the situation in the professional arena, so he also entered the NCAA. Continue training while reading. In September of this year, McDonald and Gawain joined UCLA's 2013 freshman class and both joined the school's tennis team. As soon as the two talents met, the familiar face made them get closer, and as a rookie freshman, McDonald's grades were not worth mentioning. They help each other, and they are also the best partners during training. Today, Gawain's series of reactions were really strange, and then he tossed around in the bathroom for quite a while. McDonald couldn't help but feel a little worried. However, seeing Gao Wen appearing, McDonald became a little awkward instead, and cleared his throat stiffly. You've been occupying the bathroom, and there's nothing I can do if I want to use it. Gawain widened his eyes, slowly looked towards the unused bathroom next door, then slowly looked at McDonald, speaking with his eyes. Babbling, a gust of wind blows, and the door panel of the bathroom shakes slightly. McDonald's cheeks were almost on fire, and he cleared his throat again, but he almost choked on his own saliva, so that 2 blushes flew quickly on his cheeks. If it weren't for his tanned skin from years of exposure to the sun cover-up, I'm afraid it will be exposed at this time. Ahem, McDonald coughed twice, scratching his head in embarrassment. Are you worried about whether you can enter the main lineup? There is no need to think so much, you should believe in yourself. The coach has always liked you very much on the court. Tactics and inspiration. As long as we work hard in winter training, the main force will definitely be fine. Of course, Gao Wen was not worried about his position as the main force. In his last life, he successfully entered the main lineup, and Yu Read book www.yuyuganshu.com followed the team in the spring season. In the end, the team won the runner-up in the PAC 1-2 School League, and regrettably stopped in the semi-finals in the national championships. Just the main force? Mike, your goal is too simple, at least it should be number 1 singles. Gawain looked at McDonald and blinked, and said with a smile. Mike is Mackenzie's nickname. Gao Wen really hasn't called this name for a long time, and the long-lost familiarity made the smile on the corner of his mouth rise again. He couldn't remember the last time he smiled so frequently. When exactly was it? But to McDonald, he is no stranger to him. Although Gawain's smile is a bit silly and strange today, it is still within the reasonable range. He just stared at Gawain and was slightly taken aback before reacting and clapping his hands. Laughing, followed by nodding in agreement. Yes, at least it should be the number 1 singles, at least. In competitive sports, everything needs strength to speak. It is not possible to become the number 1 in the world by talking about the number 1 in the world, but if you don't even have the courage to dream, how can you really achieve it? A player who aims to be number 2 in the world may not be able to become number 1 in his entire life. The moment your feet set foot on the court, victory is the only goal. Constantly break through yourself and challenge the limit. The championship trophy represents not only defeating the opponent, but also a higher, faster and stronger battle. Only when you have the ability to create miracles can you witness real miracles. If the Grand Slam Championship and World number 1 are too far away, and it is a bit overwhelming to aim now, then how about setting a small goal first, starting with the number 1 singles of the Bruins? The main lineup of the NCAA tennis team has a total of 6 singles seats and 6 doubles seats, and there are also 6 substitute positions. Among them, it is very common for singles players to play doubles games in the team competition. A total of 3 doubles matches and 6 singles matches are required. It is precisely because of this that even freshmen can also compete for the main position. Previously, the autumn season from September to November had just come to an end. The Bruins, a traditional NCAA tennis powerhouse, had a total of 4 players entering the national singles rankings. Naturally, these 4 players also entered the main lineup, including McDonald served as the 4th single. In addition, the 4 players including Gao Wen have their own strengths and weaknesses, and their record and strength are comparable. They will compete for the positions of number 5 singles and number 6 singles. Therefore, the first small goal after rebirth is no 6 no, it should be the singles position of number 1. How about it, Mike? Let's start training now. Gawain was eagerly jumping, like a deer, bouncing and rushing towards the court. McDonald was dumbfounded. Now? But, the coaches will take a while. Winter training means that the entire tennis team trains together to prepare for the spring season. However, according to the express regulations of the NCAA, the weekly training time is not allowed to exceed 20 hours. This is to protect the career life of the players, avoid premature injuries, and also to ensure the completion of their studies. During the off-season, the total weekly training time is reduced to 9 hours, because December is also the time for the final exam of the university. Before the Christmas holiday, students still have heavy learning and exam tasks to complete. For the NCAA, that said, this is the absolute bottom line that cannot be shaken. It is precisely because of this that winter training is easier than usual training. Now, before the team's coaching staff and other teammates arrived at the training ground, Gao Wen couldn't wait to go out for training, and McDonald was full of question marks. Although Gao Wen's training is usually very hard, it is rare to see him in such a hurry. What happened today? In a daze, McDonald also rushed out, and then he could see that Gao Wen had already started serving practice. In tennis, the serving part is the most special, because it is the only part that is not interfered by the opponent and is completely in your own hands. Once the serve is completed, the next round is a contest between players, confrontation, calculation, pressure, and counterattack. Both sides need to complete one decision after another that may change the direction of the game within a thousandth of a second. They're all holding each other back. It can be said that it is changing rapidly. This also highlights the importance of serving. If you can establish an advantage through serving, you will be able to seize the opportunity in the next round. In fact, after understanding the connection between tennis and table tennis, you can better understand the sport of tennis. In the 19th century, tennis was popular throughout Europe, but due to the limitations of venues and weather, it could not be played frequently, so British college students came up with ways to bring tennis indoors, using the dining table as a table, bringing the same rules but made some adjustments and founded table tennis. This is table tennis now. The International Table Tennis Federation calls it table tennis, although the literal translation of ping pong has gradually become widely known, but table tennis is still the official name of table tennis. Once you understand table tennis, you will also be able to understand tennis initially. These two sports are also about the art of rotation. They also need the strong support of strength and explosiveness, they also need the continuous calculation of the brain, and they also pay equal attention to the advantages established by the right to serve. The attacking layout of the first 3 shots is often able to pull open the gap. The importance of serving is self-evident. However, when it comes to specific serving techniques, there are obvious differences between table tennis and tennis. Serving in tennis is a whole-body action. Bend your knees, kick the ground, straighten your knees, twist your waist, and straighten your back, then pour all your strength towards the racket, complete friction and pressing down, and throw it out with all your strength like swinging a whip. This is a coherent movement. The power is initiated from the soles of the feet, and after a series of movements, it is poured into the palms. If there is a problem in any link, the serving effect may not be satisfactory. In the fierce competition, in the second half of the game, the physical strength is seriously reduced, the thighs cannot be kicked off the ground, and the strength of the legs cannot be transmitted upwards, so they can only rely on the strength of the arms and shoulders to complete the serving action, so the speed and accuracy will be high. Rapid decline, even continuous mistakes. Andy Roddick, the top superstar who is known as one of the best server players in history, reading www.yuyugonshu.com. Just look at his serving action, the knees are like springs, and the whole movement of kicking the ground and exerting force is very full. The body is like a full bow, pouring all the strength on the racket, and you can even see the tennis ball being directly flattened at the moment of the serve, creating a cannon serve effect. Therefore, tennis serve training is also very complicated. In the absence of the ball, basic movement exercises, movement decomposition exercises, complete movement exercises, and 500 swings are commonplace. In the case of the ball, it is necessary to repeat the above actions to continuously deepen the muscle memory and stabilize the serving action. It is also common to serve 200. And these are all just training the serve movement, and have not really entered the actual combat practice. Next, practice different types of serve, such as flat shots that pursue extreme speed, spin shots that focus on placement, and sliced shots that make full use of skills. Still haven't entered the actual combat practice. Then, there is the landing practice, which is the so-called serving practice. The first stage of practice is to divide the teeing area into 9 grids, and each time the teeing point is required to enter the designated target area. In the second stage, the Jugong grid will be developed into 998 Yon grid, with a total of 81 small grids. The goal is to enter the designated area every time the ball hits it can be called perverted. Therefore, those top serve masters often start with 500 shots in their daily practice. Right now, considering that the tennis court is not divided into 9 grids, Gao Wen is practicing a simplified version of the landing serve against the wall, and the sound of bang 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 is particularly pleasant. Boom. Outer corner. Boom. Bottom line in the middle. Boom. Outer inner corner. Gao Wen stood behind the serving line, facing the wall, 12 meters away, and was practicing the placement of the serve. The length of the tennis court is 23.77 meters, and the half court is 11.885 meters. Therefore, when practicing the serve against the wall, the standard is 12 meters, requiring each serve to be accurately landed in the target grid. Just one column near the bottom line of the serve is divided into 9 landing points, and every time Gao Wen practiced serving the serve, he was able to hit it accurately. Wait, didn't you say that serving is Gao Wen's weakness? First of all, this is practice. Without pressure, the hit rate will naturally increase greatly. Secondly, Gao Wen's serve is weak, but the real weakness lies in strength, not the placement. Moreover, even strength is relative. Don't forget that the height of 193 cm guarantees the height of the serve point, and the height the advantage is to press down with all your strength, which ensures the height of the tennis ball over the net and the speed of the ball. Another legendary serve player, Ivo Karlovic, is 211 cm tall and can be called a giant. Height can often be an inherent advantage in serving, but tennis is not basketball, and height is not always better. For a long time in the development of professional tennis, the general view is that the best height of a tennis player should be in the range of 180 cm to 188 cm, and it is not that the taller the better. For one thing, when you move your footsteps, after your height exceeds a certain value, you will not be flexible enough to move, and even look cumbersome. Second, the center of gravity is too high. When facing a backspin ball, players must squat low enough to pull up the tennis ball, but players who are too tall often can't squat down. Among the big four, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal are both 185 cm, and Novak Djokovic is 188 cm, all of which are within this ideal range. Only Andy Murray is 191 cm, a little taller, but not by much. However, with the improvement of training methods, in this group of players born after 1995, players with a height of 190 centimeters or more began to increase gradually. Conditions are transformed more efficiently. The height of 193 centimeters does bring more positive effects to Gao Wen's height, but what really limits his serve is his strength. If the strength does not increase, on the one hand, the speed of the serve will not increase, and on the other hand, the tail strength of the serve will be relatively weak, unable to create more threats. Gao Wen also knew that his strength was insufficient, so when serving the ball, he practiced the landing point more carefully, and then made full use of his height advantage to make up for the shortcomings, hoping to create more opportunities in the serving link from the point of landing. In terms of accuracy, Gao Wen has always been good. Boom! Boom! The sound of the tennis ball hitting the wall echoed in the court with a wonderful rhythm. Soon, Gao Wen discovered that the training manual provided by the system was indeed different, more refined, detailed, and more targeted. For example, when serving from the inside corner, aim at the dead corner inside the teeing area. At this landing point, the system also puts forward more and more detailed training requirements, not just flat hitting and spinning. Flat hitting, as the name suggests, is hitting hard. Tennis lacks spin, goes straight, and is fully infused with ball speed and strength. Point. The system proposes different brushing methods, that is, the time for the racket to brush the tennis ball. The shorter the time, the lower the bounce of the tennis ball after it hits the ground, the longer the time, the higher the bounce of the tennis ball after it hits the ground. That is to say, although flat hitting lacks rotation changes and only wins with speed, the system still requires flat hitting to be able to change, disrupting the opponent's rhythm of catching the ball. Imagine that the opponent sees that it is a flat serve and takes it for granted to receive the serve in the comfort zone between the waist and chest. As a result, the bounce height of the tennis ball is outside the comfort zone. They have to make adjustments again. If the adjustment is not timely or in place, if it is not, you will either catch the ball directly or return a dish ball. Rotate the ball, make full use of the friction between the racket and the tennis ball to create changes. The speed and strength will be correspondingly weakened, and the average serving speed may be reduced to 180 km per hour or even lower, but the speed of topspin, backspin, and side spin, however, it can increase the difficulty of the opponent's judgment. The system also puts forward strict training requirements: topspin, backspin, external rotation, internal rotation, and the most special two methods, the rapid jump of increasing force and the stagnation of reducing force. The former is the tail strength, and the bounce speed after landing is faster than expected. The latter is to lure the enemy deep, and there is no strength after landing and bouncing. Reading www.uuganshu.com can barely move forward. The essence of the two kinds of service changes is to change the rhythm, disrupt the opponent's prediction, and force the opponent to be in a hurry. In other words, with just one landing point, the system proposes 12 combinations, and each method requires 10 correct serves. If the serving effect does not meet expectations, then it must be sent again until it meets the expected effect. Boom! Boom! One, then one, and another. In the blink of an eye, more than 150 serves have been practiced, and all the tennis in the shopping trolley in the supermarket have been emptied. Mustard yellow tennis are scattered in the corners of the tennis court. The clothes are soaked, bathed in the golden sunlight, and the hair is steaming, as if he is practicing magic skills. Although, this is just a serve practice, and it will take years and years of hard work to complete all the practice of the serve link, and it is impossible to accomplish it overnight, but Gao Wen can still feel the happiness and joy overflowing in his chest, and the smile is on his face. The corners of the mouth, gasping for breath, bloomed. Because of returning to the court, I feel the joy of sweating profusely, also because I can get rewards for my efforts. The system should be calculating the growth potential value, and the result is absolutely exciting. According to the game experience, it is relatively easy to upgrade in the early stage. You can accumulate 100% experience by hitting 1 or 2 goblin mobs. Then he has just practiced more than 150 serves. Even if he cannot directly upgrade, the experience accumulated it should be no small matter, no wonder. Growth potential, 37.05%. What? 150 serves, and the growth potential only increased by 1%? 150 serves equals about 1% growth potential? That also means that if he wants to achieve 100%, he needs to practice at least 9,450 serves? And is it still the case that all serving exercises are effective? As the practice progresses and physical strength declines, the difficulty will probably increase exponentially. Moreover, this is the first upgrade after getting the system, and the difficulty of subsequent upgrades will definitely increase, so how easy is it to complete the upgrade just by practicing? The practice of competitive sports has always been like this. In the performance industry, the words 1 minute on stage, 10 years of work off stage are also applicable to competitive sports. Every improvement is poured out with sweat. It's not that simple, delusional shortcuts won't work. Gao Wen had a clear understanding of this, but he was still surprised when he actually saw the numbers. So, is this the so-called equivalent return? When he saw the value, Gao Wen admitted that his first reaction was unavoidably a little surprised and disappointed, and he was looking forward to more rewards in his heart, but the depression was fleeting, and then he became excited again. Most importantly, he earned a second chance, and as long as he's on the court healthy, it's something to be happy about and celebrate. Moreover, even if the increase in growth potential is not large, he can really see the effect of his hard work, and it is enough to prove that hard work must pay off. Not to mention, the effect of training is doubled. How is this reflected? Gao Wen's focus shifted from the growth potential value to the technical attribute at the top. The total value remained unchanged at 63, but the serve in the subordinate sub-item seemed to have slightly increased. Previously, serve was the lowest value in all sub-items, and even fell behind the forehand by a small amount, but now the gap between the two has narrowed a little, and the two histograms seem to be about to become consistent. Gao Wen was a little uncertain. Could it be his own delusional illusion? Or is it true that the serve has improved a little bit? After all, the starting point of serving is already relatively low, coupled with the bonus of doubling the training effect, it is reasonable to increase a little, even a little, in a short period of time. Suppose this is not Gao Wen's illusion, the serve has indeed improved, which means, the biggest highlight of the system does not lie in the cumulative increase in growth potential, but in a more scientific, systematic, clear, and detailed training system. Through the aura of doubling the training effect, as long as Gao Wen puts his feet on training, his strength can be improved. Improve step by step. In this way, the system name of Tennis Training Master can be reasonably explained. However, the training has just started now, it is only 150 serves, at most it is the level of warm-up, he still needs to continue to explore and study, and it will be clearer whether the number will increase by then. After clenching his fists, Gao Wen ignited his fighting spirit again, and started to work vigorously, packing the tennis scattered on the ground into the supermarket shopping trolley. On the other side of the court, MacDonald was hitting a forehand against the wall. State. State. MacDonald's sound is solid, he's a typical hard court player. The overall hitting is relatively flat and fast, without much spin, relying on catching the ball to improve the rhythm, using solid hitting to improve speed and strength, and gaining an advantage in the confrontation. The hitting point is often relatively correct, basically in the sweet spot, so the hitting sound is more solid. In addition, because of his short height, he has flexible feet, efficient movement, wide coverage, and good defensive performance. According to the development trajectory of the previous life, after turning to the professional arena, MacDonald is also remarkable. The highest ranking in his career once reached 57 in 2018, and there are 2 Grand Slam semifinals on his resume. He can also be said to be an outstanding backbone player in the highly competitive tour. Of course, McDonald is still young now, he has just left the youth arena, and there is still some distance from the professional level, but objectively speaking, his hard power is still higher than that of Gao Wen, and he has a lot of leads. Beating Gao Wen is not a problem. Difficulty: the autumn season that just ended last month is the most intuitive proof. Crack. A deviation in the timing of hitting the ball, the tennis ball failed to hit the sweet spot. Read book www.yuyugonshu.com missed the best timing of hitting the ball, and hit the frame of the racket, and then flew out a big arc line, over McDonald, like flak towards the other side of the pitch. McDonald turned around quickly, and saw Gawain standing opposite him with a smile on his face, and shouted, "Sorry. Are you Canadian? I'm sorry you always talk about it." Gawain retorted directly, which made McDonald burst into laughter. Talking is all about talking, but the footsteps did not stop. Gawain was already adjusting his position with a few cross-stepping horizontal movements. Hit the tennis ball back. The tennis ball drew a downward arc in the air, followed a diagonal trajectory, and flew towards McDonald's backhand. It can be seen from the hitting action and flight trajectory that this is an invitation to training, an invitation to forehand hitting training. Hoo-hoo! Seeing this, McDonald closed his mouth with a tacit understanding, and without saying anything, his attention was already concentrated. It is also a horizontal movement, continuous adjustment of small steps, looking for the best hitting position and hitting time, and in a blink of an eye, it has already reached the diagonal position, and also turned sideways to the forehand, refusing to use the backhand, and confronted Gao Wen. Pull your forehand up and hit the tennis ball back with a flat forehand. That's how the forehand practice started. Whoosh! From the trajectory and movements of the swing, it can be clearly felt that McDonald's basic skills are very solid. He successfully completed the leverage, and there was a solid sound of hitting the ball again in the air, and then the speed and strength of the tennis ball flying back were significantly accelerated. Dragging out a long tail. Forehand vs forehand. This is the strongest weapon duel that is common in tennis matches, because most players have a forehand stronger than a backhand, and the forehand is often a sharp weapon for attacking a city. Juan Marítindale Potro, the 2009 US Open champion, who is affectionately called Big Brother by fans, has a violent forehand that can be called a nuclear bomb. McDonald's forehand is flat and fast. Although he is limited by strength and lacks tail strength, the speed of his flight hits like an arrow, and the tennis ball seems to have been suppressed into an oval shape, heading towards the face with a sharp cone. Jumping over, it can be seen that he should use 80% of his strength, and he is a little bit reserved. Because it is a forehand practice, there is no need to move or predict, just stand still and wait. But in a tennis match, if you are lazy and really stand still, then losing is the only result. The adjustment of steps must be carried out all the time. During the tennis flight, keep observing and constantly adjust your steps to find the most comfortable and suitable hitting position and timing. Tread. Tread. Gawain stared at the tennis ball and noticed that McDonald's ball didn't spin, but the ball landed very deep, less than 50 centimeters inside the baseline. This meant that after the tennis ball bottomed out, there was not much room left for Gao Wen to hit the ball. Either, take a big step back to gain space for hitting the ball, and find the sweet spot, or, just like Gao Wen is now, adjust your footsteps, stand firmly on your feet, bend your knees, lower your center of gravity, and then take the first shot at the hitting point below the waist when the tennis ball rebounds and rises rapidly. Boom! The racket can feel the huge force of the impact of the tennis ball, but the wrist remains stable, and the friction is quickly lifted to ensure that the racket is in full contact with the tennis ball, and the whole body is pushed forward. The power is transmitted from the heel to the racket through the arm, and the shoulder pressing forward with the arms, make a giant looping swing. Crack! The tennis ball rushed out at high speed like an arrow off the string, drew a big parabola, and soared in the wind. Although McDonald's body is relatively thin, his upper body muscles are still better than Gawaine's, and his forehand strength is also stronger. Although he didn't use his full strength at this time, the return was deep enough and fast enough, but it still gave Gao Wen room to fight back. When returning the ball, he made full use of his body's strength to superimpose, and then he could see the tennis ball spinning at high speed, heading towards the sideline like a shooting star. The dead end where it meets the bottom line falls rapidly. Spin. Bounce. Gawaine's return ball obviously adds more spin, not only aiming at the dead corner, but also the bounce of the tennis ball after landing will be higher for McDonald's, who suffers from height. If the ball is hit above the shoulder, then the quality of the ball has definitely improved, and the whole catch movement is awkward. With one return, McDonald could clearly feel the improvement in the quality of Gao Wen's return. However, he was not in a hurry, adjusted small steps continuously, stretched his footsteps beyond the doubles line, and then stepped up to complete the interception on the line where the tennis ball continued to rebound and rise, grabbed the ball at the position of his chest, and then one step up. A dash forward. McDonald covered the tennis ball that hadn't fully bounced, and skillfully used the power of the incoming ball to return the ball with force. Boom! The tennis ball hit back at a faster and stronger speed. Just now, Gao Wen deliberately used friction to pull out a parabola, flying high over the net, but now McDonald pressed down directly again, and the tennis ball almost flew towards the net, like a bird. Like a naughty rabbit, he ran towards Gao Wen's chest. Gao Wen could clearly feel that the space for returning the ball has been further compressed, and the strength and speed of the incoming ball have also been further enhanced. Although he tried to keep up with McDonald's rhythm, he also returned the tennis ball at a high speed, but at this stage, the all-round gap in strength still put Gao Wen at a disadvantage. Back and forth. Back and forth. It was also a forehand duel, but the gap was gradually widening. With the increase of back and forth, McDonald became more and more comfortable and relaxed, and the quality of the ball returned remained at a high level. Gao Wen's return the ball continued. The slide, the depth of the return, the bounce, the power, and the spin, it's all down. As a result, Gao Wen's return became shallower and shallower, and McDonald's footsteps were also slowly approaching the bottom line. If it was an official match, McDonald would have already started to kill him. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com, but now it is forehand practice, so he is constantly adjusting and persevering, and there is no fatal blow. Gao Wen realized that this was not going to work. After the gap between advantages and disadvantages gradually widened, it could not be reversed in the end. He has to make a change. Since head-to-head confrontation with strength is not enough, we can only start with rotation. Eyes fixed on McDonald's return, which this time was a little less deep, with room for a stride from the baseline. Chance. Gawain realized it immediately. He stomped on the ground suddenly, stepped up vertically, and at the same time pulled his body horizontally outwards. He deliberately pulled his body out a little, and then shot a little earlier. After the tennis ball rebounded, the height just past his waist at the moment, the right hand has already stepped forward to hit the ball. He didn't use his full strength, but a flattering skateboard shot, fully feeling the process of the tennis ball crossing the entire racket net line, enough friction to exert enough rotation, and the force exerted by McDonald on the tennis ball, so that Gao Wen could clearly feel he felt the violent trembling of the racket and the threading, but at this time it became Gao Wen's help. Instead, he took advantage of the reaction force of these forces to apply to the tennis ball. Then, with a flick of the wrist whoosh, the flight trajectory of the tennis ball has changed slightly. Previously, the ball was always returned towards the area close to the baseline, but now it is closer to the tee box, and the shallower landing point brings out a wider angle. Hula la! The tennis ball seems to have no power, but its speed has been raised to a higher level. It flies lightly with all its strength, and its refraction angle directly expands from 30 degrees to 60 degrees. After landing, it flies towards the side audience stands. A change in the depth of the drop point can reverse the situation in an instant. Ah! McDonald sensed the crisis the moment Gao Wen started filming. With a skateboard-style flick with force, Gao Wen reversed the disadvantage of the strong forward draw, tearing up the angle with one slap, disrupting McDonald's rhythm in an instant. But McDonald, who was concentrating on hitting the ball, did not lose his mind. He jumped lightly on the spot, kicked his left foot hard, and his body shot out like an arrow off the string. In the middle, the right arm is straightened, reaching for the tennis ball soaring high. At this time, McDonald had lost the position of the best hitting point, but he still tried his best, kicked hard in the fast running, completely threw himself out like a baseball player sliding base, and then made full use of the power of kicking. Complete the movement of twisting your waist and sending your shoulders, and swing your arms horizontally. Got it? The high-speed flying tennis ball hit the racket. At this time, McDonald had lost control of his body and could no longer hold back. Straighten your back, send your shoulders, swing your arms, and hit the ball. The whole movement was done in one go, with a faster speed and higher strength to swing the racket powerfully, and after finishing hitting the ball, the forehand swing still did not end. The racket completed a Thomas roundabout action on the head, and the eyes were still fixed on playing tennis. Whoosh! Snapped. The tennis ball turned into a streamline of mustard yellow, pulled out at an even more outrageous angle, flew close to the net, fell quickly, and landed directly in the teeing area. The refraction angle reached 75 degrees, and then shot up high, like a shooting star. Generally rushed to the audience stands. Oops! Big angle vs bigger angle. With the help of Gawain's forehand return, McDonald opened up a wider angle and hit a counter-attack similar to an outside corner serve. The tennis ball landed in the service area without any mistakes, and flew towards the outside of the doubles area. It went out, and the bounce after landing was very high and very fast. Gawain realized right away that his return was still not able to completely suppress McDonald. Similarly, McDonald's return ball does not need to be predicted to be able to see the line clearly because this is a forehand pull exercise, the foot stays in place. But the problem now is not anticipation, but batting. McDonald's return ball bounced high and high, judging from the upward arc, the bounce height was already able to pass the top of Gawain's head. What to do? Tread. Tread. Gawain adjusted his position in small steps continuously, and quickly moved laterally. His body had already entered the shadowed area from the sunlit area, and disappeared like a ninja. However, his eyes remained motionless, locked on the tennis ball bathed in the golden sunlight. The sound of the wind stirred in my ears. Kick off. Jump. The 193 centimeters tall man jumped up high, his legs were volleying in the air, his back was bent, stretched like a big sculpture bow. Through the beautiful curve of his back, he could clearly see the clear blue and gorgeous golden. The whole figure escaped from the shadows and appeared in the sunlight again. Hands up. Lift your shoulders. The whole body has been stretched to the extreme, like a kite flying freely under the blue sky, light and free, and the perfect suspension brings a pure visual enjoyment, but Gawain didn't notice these at all, and his attention was completely concentrated. Gao Wen stared intently at the tennis ball. At this time, the hitting point had already passed the top of his head, but he still raised the racket high, making full use of the height of the jump and his own height. The racket became an extension of the arm, seized the commanding height, and found the hitting point. Ball point, and the forearm swung quickly, vibrating with all its strength like a horsewhip, and the wrist was nimbly suppressed, creating the effect of blocking the ball from top to bottom. Rub. The forearm can feel the strong force of the rapid impact of the tennis ball, but the swift and violent swinging movement strongly suppresses the vibration, and he swings with all his strength. Boom. Suppress with all your strength. Forcibly fight back. The tennis ball flew out like a cannon. Boom. The tennis ball flew a straight parabola, and smashed towards the ground at an incident angle of 75 degrees, just like a bomber flying over the city at low altitude. In the collision of force and force, the flight line was perfectly controlled, rotation and speed. All have been completely crushed by force. Boom! The top-down flight trajectory hit the inner side of the teeing area on McDonald's side, shallow and oblique, and hit the dead corner of the bottom line of the teeing area, and rushed out like a meteor. The superposition of speed, strength, and doubling the power, the tennis ball explodes with incredible energy. Whoosh! It disappeared in a blink of an eye, and it seemed that it was just a ball mark on the ground, but the tennis ball disappeared without a trace, and it was impossible to catch the sight. McDonald was still standing in his forehand position and did not lose his position. Logically speaking, he was still able to complete his reaction and even catch the ball and hit back. However, the speed and strength of tennis directly broke the limit of reflex nerves, and he reacted. He had already rushed to the audience seats before. Like a statue. Can't move. He was stared at the spot, and he stretched out the racket subconsciously, but he didn't know what the tennis ball distribution line was. The next second, he felt a gust of wind passing by, and he turned his head to look at it reflexively. In the past, watching the tennis ball drag its long tail and fly up to the stands. And his footsteps, like nails, did not make the slightest movement at all. Turn back, turn back, turn back, turn back. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. The line of sight moved back and forth between the spectator seats and the landing point of the court. Perhaps, the ball mark left on the court could prove what happened just now, and the return ball was definitely within bounds. Perfect return. Wheeze. Wheeze. The heart slammed into the chest, the adrenaline burst continuously, and the whole head roared. Then, McDonald panted heavily, raised his head slightly, but found that the slowly rising sun was so dazzling. Forehand vs forehand, Gao Wen, win. It is McDonald who has continuously accumulated advantages through strength and speed. In the long-term forehand pull, he has accumulated enough advantages. In the predicament, Gao Wen took the lead in making changes, using rotation to reverse the unfavorable situation. It also forced McDonald to fight hard and hit a limit point. However, unexpectedly, Gao Wen hit back with a super powerful forehand. In addition to his strength, he made full use of his height advantage and the strength of his forearm, and finally hit an unsolvable return. McDonald could only wait and see. Chu Xing sighed, the reacting figure was suppressed, indeed. Fantastic! Looking at the empty stands of the stadium, McDonald could not help but let out a sad sigh with a hint of fascination. But the emotional stay was only short, and then he turned his head and applauded Gao Wen. This shot really deserves applause and encouragement. However, the words that came out of his mouth were, "Sorry." After McDonald finished speaking, he showed a helpless apology, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised, shaking his head to express his helplessness while smiling slightly to express his apology. Sorry, really, sorry. Feel sorry? Why sorry could it be that Gao Wen's superpower hit the ball out of bounds? McDonald apologized? Of course not. Gawain's return ball landed accurately in bounds, and McDonald's apology was due to another matter, his own return. Generally speaking, when practicing, they tend to avoid extreme shots. After all, this is a basic exercise at the technical level. Feed the ball to each other and make the ball to each other so that the continuity can continue. Although Gawain's return is very tricky, it is still within the normal control range. He mainly uses the change of rotation to change the rhythm of the shot, which is an important part of forehand practice. However, McDonald's return is not. With his body fully stretched and his center of gravity out of stability, he tried his best to hit an extreme return ball, leaving no room for Gao Wen to return the ball. Although Gawain returned the ball with superpower and produced a wonderful and breathless return, McDonald simply nailed it in place without being able to respond. Practice rhythm. Because it was batting practice, McDonald was the first to express his apology before congratulating Gao Wen. Sorry. MacDonald took the initiative to run forward and apologized repeatedly, and then he saw Gawain turn his head to meet his gaze, but it was not the expected reaction at all. It's not about saying it's okay with a smile on your face, or making jokes about Canadians, nor showing off or teasing complacently, but a kind of eagerness to try. The problem is that during batting practice, they still need to avoid such hitting as much as possible to avoid injury. But Gawain exuded a kind of joy all over his body. The excitement that rushed to his face was a kind of aggression, which was really hard to describe in words. His whole eyes were glowing, just like the clown saw Batman. So, he's Batman? Gawain is a clown? The thoughts that flashed through his mind did not relieve the atmosphere, the words were still stuck in his throat, and he looked at Gawain, full of confusion. "Dear Mike, don't worry, don't worry." Gawain raised the corners of his mouth slightly, narrowed his eyes slightly, with a kind of obscene light, and even rubbed his hands together, almost spitting into his palms. There was a kind of can't wait to jump up and down. That look, strangely. It's not just the Joker who sees Batman, but the wolf who sees Little Red Riding Hood. MacDonald paused for a while, looked at Gawain who was shining brightly, and was stunned for a moment, then, slowly raised his hands, crossed them on his chest, and made a self-protective movement, faced with hesitation and vigilance. He vacillated and looked up and down at the friend in front of him. "Ha ha ha!" Seeing MacDonald strategically leaning back, Gawain couldn't hold back anymore and burst out laughing. MacDonald was also a little embarrassed, put his hands down embarrassingly, looked around helplessly, and muttered, "Your eyes look weird." But the following words were swallowed, and as he spoke, he also felt absurd and couldn't help laughing. Gawain joked cheerfully, "Don't worry, you're not my type." Then he winked at MacDonald. MacDonald understood immediately, and hurriedly said, "My reaction just now is strange after you interpret it like this." Gawain smiled even brighter. "Smile, because of MacDonald, but it's more than that just now." His growth potential increased by a full 1% in his forehand duel practice with MacDonald. "In the previous serving practice, I worked hard to practice 150 serves, and the growth potential only increased by 1%. Now practice a forehand match with MacDonald, and the growth potential has also increased by 1%. The ratio of effort and return has shown a geometric multiple increase, which is really gratifying." Gawain immediately remembered the explanation about growth potential. Growth potential values can be obtained through basic training, daily training, and competitions. The specific value will vary according to the content, intensity, difficulty, and method of training or competitions. Now it can be preliminarily confirmed that the higher the difficulty of practice and the more intense the intensity of confrontation, the higher the growth rate of growth potential will be. Although the rate of 1% is still not high, it has once again confirmed that the core function of the system is training, and the function of growth potential is temporarily unknown, when saw the possibility of continuous self-improvement. As long as you work hard enough, you can grow. Perhaps, if we explore further, more possibilities can be discovered for the increase in growth potential, and it will no longer be 1% or 2%. In Gawain's eyes, the MacDonald at this moment is a shining golden steamed bun. He deserves to be a good guy who can rank among the top 100 in the world in the future. He can improve the difficulty of training while walking in the garden, and even the opponent must improve his state. Maybe for others, MacDonald seems too serious and too serious. After investing, reading www.yuyugonshu.com, but it was just right for Gawain. He just needs such a training partner, which is much better than practicing hard by himself. MacDonald once again noticed the light in Gawain's eyes, and almost drooled. This made MacDonald feel as if he had been stripped naked. His brain immediately sounded the alarm, and goosebumps appeared on his back. Subconsciously stepped back. But seeing Gawain's joking expression, realizing his embarrassment, he quickly straightened his back, and kept repeating, "I'm not thinking wildly. I'm not thinking wildly. I'm not. Ha ha ha." Gawain laughed happily again, looking at MacDonald, who turned around and retreated repeatedly, staggering on his feet. He had a wonderful feeling of being overwhelmed, and called out loudly, "Mike, practice ball, let's practice ball together again." MacDonald had no idea that he had become a sharp weapon in Gawain's eyes. He stopped and ignited a flame in his sight. He turned around and waved his right hand at Gawain. He didn't speak, but his movements couldn't be more obvious. "Bring it on!" Boom! Gawain picked up a tennis ball from his feet. Without any hesitation, he slapped the tennis ball over, and then the two of them started a new round of forehand pull training. Then, the breath of youth and sweat seemed to stir up ripples. The rising sun in the morning slowly climbed up the treetops, and the golden sunlight sprinkled all over the ground, reflecting a piece of blue above the head that was so clear and so deep, as if the whole world stretched endlessly. Just open your arms, able to embrace the boundless sky and the vast sea. Everything is possible.